Hey, Mark and Nikki, it's Bill Wilcuts, just doing your market for you here. I've done these videos for people and sent them to them. Basically, you just get on YouTube and watch them, but seems to work out pretty well. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and get started. Nice thing is I'm flipping through stuff here. If there's anything that you want to look at, you can pause the video. So I'm going to look at some photos and stuff of some houses, and I'll probably flip through them quickly. But if you want to kind of take a closer look for comparison and so forth, just pause the video. So anyway, here's the market analysis. I sent this to you in an email today. This is a pre-shrink wrap thing that our system puts together. So I'm just going to go through the nitty-gritty details. Here's your property. I went ahead and I looked at the assessor card. The assessor card said that your house was 1056 as far as the total square footage goes. I know I calculated 1125. I could be right, could be wrong. I mean, if you're off by 6 inches or something like that around the whole house, that takes off 50 square feet. So anyway, so 1056 for total square footage. Now, what this is this is basically an informal appraisal. So this is the same kind of thing that an appraiser does. They'll take a look at houses, they'll compare them, they'll subtract square footage, they'll add square footage, they'll take the difference between the two, comparing your house to another house, and then they'll do a price adjustment. So for, say, if there's a house that's 200 square feet larger than yours, they'll know the area where you're living in, and they'll say, okay, well, on the ground floor, if it's 200 square feet at $20 a square foot, and they multiply that out. And then what they do is they say, okay, well, this house on Partridge Run sold for 93, and after all these adjustments, because it had more square footage than yours, I have to subtract from the price of that house to bring it down to where your house is. So what's interesting, and this is some reason, somehow I got 73.5 for adjusted prices on all three of these properties. Now, let me tell you too that as far as appraisal goes on your property, there may be an issue when it comes time to selling. Um, I couldn't find too many sold homes in the area, and we can only go back 12 months. So there hasn't been much that's sold. A couple of them were repos. So that's not good. That's not actually a good market value to go off of those, because adjusting upwards in value is so subjective. So anyway, so you can stop and take a look at this. These are adjustments that I made. Now this house on Partridge was very nice. That's why it sold for 93. And when you take a look, I'll flip through the photos and you'll see why. Now these are sold homes, so these have already closed. This is what the buyer and seller agreed upon. These are the adjustments that I made based on age. I took quite a difference there. Number of bays in the garage, half bath $500, $1,000 for a full bath. And these figures that I use to do these calculations, I get these from other appraisers. These are kind of their formulas that they use. Now some of the price per square foots are subject to the area. So 200 square foot on one house in one area, when you're in the three and $400,000 price range, obviously it's going to be more like depending on how well the house is finished, it's going to be more like an adjustment of, say, $40, $45 a square foot, where, cheaper homes, obviously, it's going to be much lower. It's going to be probably around 15 to 20 in your area. Basements tend to be $5 a square foot, and then $5 a square foot for the finished areas in the basement. So, and then of course that changes as well with the quality finish. So you can stop and take a look at this and see what I adjusted. I know your shed was, I know Mark said it was about a $6,000 shed. Unfortunately, when it comes to outbuildings, I might even be generous in giving you $2,000 on that. Now that's value. Obviously, it's going to mean more to you, but outbuildings are about the biggest waste of money, unfortunately, as far as what the value return is from what you spend. So anyway, so I put 2,000 as a value on that one. Now this is another way of looking at things. Here you have your subject property. These are the details on your house that I plugged in. And then here you can just look straight across and see the differences. 7 years old, 39 years old, 64 years old, so forth. So bedrooms, bathrooms, all the works. Basements, no basements, and so forth. And then here again, here's the adjustments that were made. You can see those. Let me keep going here. Now here shows some averages. The only thing, yeah, this I don't really like to pay too much attention to. Yeah, it's another page that I want to show you. Okay, now here's a graph that makes us look really smart. Comparing sale price to list price. Now this number here, where is it? Average selling price, highest selling price. Is that it? No. Here's another graph. Oh, adjusted price. Here we go. Average adjusted price. Well, that was pretty easy. 73.5. They were all the same. But anyway, that's kind of the number that I usually tend to look at or focus on mostly. Now, some of these things, when I draw my final conclusions, I typically do it based on a couple of factors. This information that I'm showing you here on the sold properties, and then I also do it when taking a look at the active listings. In other words, looking at the active listings is looking at your competition. So I'll get to that in a minute. Now here's a map. Here's the black dot. That's your house, and then here's where these other properties are in proximity to your home. So that's a map of the area. That's pretty much it for the market analysis itself. Now the other thing I want to show you is, let's take a look at these other properties. Now I emailed this list to you, so you can go through these if you want to as well. Notice that 3 of these are solds. These are the ones that were in the market that we just went through. So let's take a look at those. We'll just kind of flips through some photos. You could look at all the details. Here's square footage and so forth, bedrooms, bathrooms. That's some of that information's here. So we'll just flip through some photos here. This was one of the cheaper homes, so we had to adjust up. Now, comparing your home to this one might be a little bit of an issue for an appraiser because this one is a Cape Cod. It's a 1.5 story. But you can just kind of see, flipping through the photos, nicely finished house. There's certain things in this house that look small, so there's not much that you can really do about them, as far as layout and floor plan goes. But the house is nicely finished, so I would say, looking at all this, this house probably is going to get top dollar for what it has to offer, just because it looks so nice. Oh, yeah, that's very nice. So yeah, they definitely, whatever they sold this for, I don't know. Woodburn, that's kind of a small community, so it's not like a lot of people are banging down the doors to get into that area. Um, but they probably got top dollar for what they could get. Would be my guess. Now let's go to the next one. Now that's an active listing. We'll get to those in a minute. This is another one. This is the one. This isn't the nicest one, but this is relatively similar. We'll just flip through this real quick. Here again, this is pretty nicely done. So I would say that looking at these homes, this one in particular, yeah, I'd say this one is pretty comparable to yours as far as, the decor and everything. I forget if this one had a basement. They got an extra building out there, which is, so they got a 2-car garage, which is obviously a little more appealing. But I adjusted for that. Did I flip through these? Oh no. Okay, so now this one's on a basement too. So I did adjust for the basement, which it's not really finished, but they've at least painted the floor and stuff, so it looks halfway decent. And then the next one, this one is really pretty spectacular. It is on a basement. It's on a full basement. As if I remember, it's all very nicely finished. You got a nice detached 2-car garage. Kitchen's nice. I don't know that I'd say it's much better than yours, but it's different. You know, it's more wood. Yours is white, but still looks very nice and clean, like yours does. House is very nicely done. The basement was, I think, what really is makes this house stand out. Probably why they got 93,000 for this. Looks like it's got a really nice big backyard, which is a plus too. So that explains it. That house has definitely got some real bonuses with it. Um, so let's take a look at the active listings. So based on the sold listings, I'd say your house, for an appraised value will come in at the, 73, 74,000 price range. Now, any appraisal, there's an acceptable 3% margin of error. So you could have 10 guys go in and do appraisals and you get 10 different numbers, but they're all well within 3% of each other is would be an acceptable difference uh, or acceptable variations, let's put it that way. Okay, so we've got, let me see here. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, so this is another active. Now this is a 1.5 story. This is a 2 bedroom, which doesn't really compare, but there isn't much out in Woodburn for sale right now. So that's a nice looking house, nice little outbuilding. I don't think, yeah, this one looks like it kind of needs some help. Yeah, it definitely needs some updating. So this is not really going to blow anybody's hair back. Kitchen's not very good, obviously. So you got 2-car garage and additional buildings, so they're not asking a whole lot for that property. 2 bedroom, that's a big, well, that's a killer for price. You just can't ask as much. Now this one, I think, is probably closer to your competition. I mean, it's pretty much very similar house. Now the decor and how well it's finished, I'm not quite sure. Don't remember. Okay, so this is okay. It's a little outdated, I think. So I wouldn't say this is comparable to yours, but it's probably the closest competition that you have right now. So, if somebody was willing to pay this seller exactly what they're asking for, they might be willing to, if they can, they might be willing to pay a little bit more for yours. So anyway, so that gives you some idea as to what is out there. Like I said, now in Woodburn there isn't much available. Let's see what else. Oh, okay. So basically, what I would say here is that in taking a look at all this, you're competing against this guy here. Um, you could probably, I sent you an email, and I try to give people options, um, let them know what I think, I guess, and I would say that if you really wanted to test the market and see what you could squeeze out of your house, you could list it up high at, like, say 79.9. Now, the problem with listing high is that if you really are going to end up selling in the low 70s, which I think might be the case here, and I would hope that I'm wrong, um, but if you are going to end up having to sell in the low 70s, being up at a high price doesn't help you, because the people who can, there are going to be probably more people who can afford your house at 70 to 73,000 than there are that could afford it at 80. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that people shop in $5,000 increments. So when we set up a search, it's pretty much what can you afford, and they go to the lender, and the lender says you can afford 165,000 or 160,000. So they'll set their price right there, and if your house is listed at 161 and they're only approved at 160, then the realtor's probably going to have 160 as a cap, and your house may not show up on their radar. Or, I mean, there could be some variations there in the thinking on whatever they set as a maximum price, but it's always going to be probably a 10, at least a $5,000 increment, especially when you get down into lower price ranges, because things, numbers just get tighter. So you don't want to get too high that you're cutting yourself out of the market. Now, the other drawback right now is enlisting the house. It's a good idea to get it on the market, but your activity, your feedback, and so forth, it's going to be kind of tough because there aren't going to be quite as many buyers out there right now. As we move more into March and get into April, there will be more buyers getting active in the market, looking for places to live and so forth. And so a lot of times when you talk to sellers, they typically are thinking their time frame and motivation really puts them into getting their house in the market. Uh, I'd say March would be early. April is kind of typical, but a lot of people also don't end up getting it done until May, getting it on the market until May and start shopping because they're working on fixing up the house or things like that. Or spring break gets in the way and they just, don't deal with anything like that for a little while during the spring break season. So anyway, but if you were to throw it on the market and put it up at say 79.9 really high, you might run into an issue where people aren't, you're not going to be able to tell what the market's really doing because the market isn't fully engaged yet. So anyway, just to give you some ideas, I hope that helps. The other thing that I wanted to go over with you is the net sheet. What I like to do is just kind of give you a worst case scenario. Now your property taxes are really high right now, and we'll talk more about that later. They'll come down for a new homeowner because of the homestead exemptions, which you guys should potentially. It's not going to help you now. It won't help you for about a year, but um, you probably should have filed those once you moved back into the house, got the homestead exemption. Um, so anyway, so you owe 68,000 roughly is what's on there. Any of these figures you change, obviously you need to adjust it. Now I did send you this spreadsheet, and if you do want to kind of play with the figures, all you do is change the numbers in the gray boxes. You don't touch anything else because it automatically calculates everything. So if I take this down to 50,000, or 50,000, it'll automatically recalculate these numbers here. Okay, so um, so anyway, so here's two columns right here, 74.9 for a sale price and 69.9. I think somewhere in there is a realistic sale price for you. So you got taxes, you'll be prorated, so you'll probably end up having to credit the seller or the buyer $1,550 in taxes, $300 for a survey, recording fees, etc. Your side of the closing fees are typically pretty cheap, usually around between $1,000 and $1,200. Um, Probably going to be asked to pay a home warranty, to pay for a home warranty. That's pretty typical. The other thing you can expect is to be asked to pay up to 3%, which is this figure here, 3% of the buyer's closing costs. Um, Now that's obviously a negotiable point. However, if you just absolutely refuse to do that, pretty much everybody asks for closing costs. So if you would say refuse, you say nope, I'm not doing that, then your buyer isn't going to be buying your home because most people will have the down payment, but they likely won't have enough money to cover the closing costs as well. So um, now, obviously, you're not going to budge on price much if they're asking for 2,300 bucks in closing costs. Now, the commissions here, 2% on my side and 3% for the buyer's agent, and then my firm also charges a $175 fee. I can talk more about that later, but it's a transaction fee maintaining the file and so forth and things like that. But you only pay that at closing when the house sells. So total commission, total closing costs, etc. So you crunch the numbers and subtract it all down. And if it sells at 74.9, you would end up having to bring about $2,300 to closing. If it sells at 69.9, there's the figure there. So that doesn't look too good. So like I said in the email that I sent, big question for you guys is going to be, do you have the funds to put money down on a new house or whatever you need there? Plus, you're going to have to bring this kind of money to closing. So definitely check on that. I think that's pretty much it. If you want to sell sooner than later, obviously lowering the price, getting those repairs made on the house that Mark's working on, that's about all you can do at this point as far as the house goes itself. But pretty much once you kind of get the house in tip-top shape, price is about the only thing that you can really leverage, so or play around with. So anyway, I hope that helps. Jot down any questions that you might have, and always, contact me. And I should see you guys tomorrow to look at houses.